Hello, my name is Courtney, and today I will be reviewing how to enter an action plan and status report into TaskStream's Accountability Management System, also known as AMS. If you have not yet watched the training video on how to add your annual assessment report into AMS, then please do that before continuing on with this training. This will be an interactive online training, which means I will provide information on how to input your report, and then there will be recommended pause breaks in which you can take time to input your own report before continuing on. At these pause breaks, I will provide you with step-by-step instructions on the screen. This will give you time to enter information at your own pace, so please do not worry about following along in real time. We will continue to use our social media studies program example from the previous video. So my program has 3 outcomes and 1 measure for each outcome. Let us focus in on student learning outcome number 1 to start. My program measures this outcome with the social media campaign project, which is scored using a uniform rubric. Our program set the acceptable target at 95%. Unfortunately for this academic year, our cohort average was below 95%, and thus this target was not met. As you can see from the rest of my report, the social media studies program met the acceptable target for student learning outcome number 2 and student learning outcome number 3. Therefore, as part of my annual assessment report, I need to complete an action plan followed by a status report only for student learning outcome number 1. At this time, I'm going to ask that you please pause the video and sign into your AMS account, as well as pull up your completed 2016-2017 assessment report template. Just as I did in the previous video, I will be showing you a live example of my AMS account. So now that we are all logged into AMS, I'm going to ask that you enter the workspace for the program that you wish to add an action plan into by clicking directly on the link Academic Assessment and Planning Workspace. And you'll now be entered directly into the system. And you can see on the sidebar here that we have everything expanded. I'm going to have you go ahead and collapse all of the categories that we will not be using, since we are entering an action plan and status report for the 2016-2017 assessment cycle. That should be the only category that you have open. Please click on the action plan over here in the sidebar, followed by checkout up there at the very top. Now that we've hit checkout, you can see that I have 2 options. It's asking me if I would like to create a new operational plan. An operational plan is just another way to say action plan. Or if I would like to copy an existing plan from a starting point. Since this is our first time in the system and our first time creating an action plan, I'm going to go ahead and select Create New Operational Plan. A time in which you may choose to copy an existing plan as a starting point would be, let's say, in 2017-2018, we have the exact same actions that we are working on. Instead of creating a brand new plan, we would go ahead and copy the plan from 2016-2017. Now that I've clicked on Create New Plan, you can see that my mission statement was automatically brought over, and now it's time to associate our student learning outcomes to this action plan. So I'm going to do that by clicking Select Set, Select Existing Set, and then you need to pick out which outcome set you want. This is the one that we added in the last training video. If you're not positive which one it is, if you have similar names, go ahead and click this link right here. It will bring up the list of outcomes in a new window, and you can make sure that it's the correct one. It is, so I'm going to go ahead and select Continue, and that brings us to this list. You're only going to want to click on the checkbox associated with the outcome that you have a measure for in which it was not met. So my findings were not met, as you recall, for student learning outcome number 1, but they were for the other 2, so I'm not going to include those in my action plan at this time. Once you've selected all of the outcomes that should be in your plan, go ahead and click on Accept and Return to Plan. And you can see that I now have my outcome number 1 right here in the body of my workspace. I am going to ask that you pause the video at this time to create your new plan and select the learning outcome set that you need for your program. And now we are ready to add our actions. So to do that, go to the student learning outcome that you would like to add your action for and click on Add New Action. Now you're going to need to click on the little link here on the checkbox there to make sure that you indicate what findings are associated with this measure. So this is the finding that shows that I did not meet my outcome. I click continue, and now I'm brought to this screen where I need to copy and paste from my template report. So I'm going to scroll down to the section action plan, and I'm going to start to copy and paste everything over. So I have my action title here. When you're coming up with your action item title, choose something that associates the action to what you're actually doing. So I have rubric review committee meeting. It's because as a faculty we talked about how we can improve this, and we decided that we needed to start by actually reviewing the rubric itself to make sure that it was valid and reliable, because there were discrepancies between the scores given by our supervisors and the scores given by our faculty. So to do that, we have our action details here, and I'm going to copy and paste that over. And then I have my implementation plan or timeline. I have that very detailed, and I want to provide that in here as well. The key responsible personnel, again, I'm going to copy and paste that over. Program coordinator is going to lead the meeting. We're going to include the instructors as well as some of our campaign supervisors to make sure that we have all parties present. And finally, we have our measures. I only have one measure at this time, and that's the review committee rubric meeting notes. This is going to be used to show that the committee met and determined the appropriate actions. Once I figure out what those appropriate actions are, I can always come back into AMS and add additional action items as necessary. You might have a budget that you needed. I did add a budget just for this example here. I want to provide lunch to everybody that is going to be joining the meeting. So I'm going to need $100. So I'm going to add, that is my request amount. And this is a medium priority level for our program. Once I'm all done, I'm going to hit apply changes, but before I do that, I do want to point out the import action button here. That's something that I went over in the previous training. Importing is just really beneficial if you have this action located in other places on your plan. So if there are multiple instances where you have the rubric review committee meeting as the actual action, then go ahead and use that import action feature so that you do not need to keep copy and pasting every single time this appears in your plan. And that is the only action that I have for this student learning outcome number 1. So I am all done here. If you have additional actions, then go ahead and continue to add those until you have finished adding all actions associated with all measures that were unmet. And once you have done that, you can then go ahead and move on to the status report. Before we move into the status report, I do want to give you a pause break. Please go ahead and pause your video at this point and add in all of your actions by using the step-by-step instructions on your screen. I have checked my action plan back in, so now it's time to start my status report. As you recall from the previous video, everything does save automatically and is carried over, so you can see my action has already been brought over. I'm going to check this page out, and now it's time to add my first status. So I'm going to go ahead and click directly on that button there, which brings me to my information page. Your status report should be updated continuously throughout the academic year, and so I'm going to go ahead and add my first status in here. Obviously, I haven't started it yet, and I haven't submitted a budget, so that's what I would enter in for my first time, and I would hit submit. Since it is something that should be updated continuously, once I have held my committee meeting, I can go back in here and I can hit the edit button, and now later on I say, yep, it's completed. The budget was approved. I can provide additional information on the meeting, any next steps that came out of my meeting, and I hit submit, and you can see here that I now have this little link where I can add attachments or links. An instance where I might want to add an attachment would be, in this case, I had my committee meeting. I can add my committee meeting notes directly into here. Let's say later on we decided that we needed to actually update the rubric. Once I've updated that rubric, I can add that attachment as evidence of fulfilling my action. Once I'm all done though, I can go ahead and check this back in. You can additionally add a comment if you want. And now I have added a status and updated the status for all of the actions that were associated with the 2016-2017 assessment cycle. I am going to ask that you update the status of your actions at this point. So go ahead and pause the video and follow along with the step-by-step instructions on your screen. And now it is time to submit. To officially complete your report, you must submit all required components. For the College of EHHS, the deadline to do that is by December 1st. So by December 1st, you need to submit your assessment plan and assessment findings for the cycle you are completing the report for. So for me in 2016-2017, that would be these two right here. If you have an action plan and status report, then you need to submit both of those as well. And then you also need to submit the assessment plan for the following assessment cycle. To do this, you're going to go ahead and click right here on Submissions and Read Reviews. It'll bring you to this large table where you can see all of the different cycles. You're going to go down and you're going to click on the button that says Submit Work, and you're going to do that for each one of the components that you have to submit. Once you're done, you're going to see a little lock icon appear next to the name, and it's also going to indicate that that item has been submitted. Go ahead and pause the video at this time so that you can submit your work. If you need to remember exactly what you need to submit, then it is listed right there on your screen. And now you're all done with the annual assessment report for this cycle. Please remember to go back into the system throughout the academic year to update your status report. Please reach out with any questions or concerns.